attend the revision. Okay. Right. Movement in space, lesson 1. قلت لكم I will concentrate on the important things. Always also I want you, when you study for any exam, I always concentrate on the concepts: satellite, star, planet, meteor, comet, constellation, geocentric, heliocentric, ellipse, and so on. Yani always memorize the concepts. Concepts are very important. Okay, now a satellite, okay, is a body that orbits a planet. Okay, like Earth's moon, our moon is a satellite because it orbits Earth. Okay, fine. So a satellite must orbit a planet. For example, Mars has 2 moons. Earth has 1 moon. These moons are called satellites because they orbit the planet. Outer planets, as you know, like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, they have many moons. They have outer planets have many moons. Now a star, like the sun, is a giant ball of superheated gas or plasma composed of hydrogen and helium. The sun or the star is made up of gases. It's a giant ball of gases, these or plasma, and it is very, very hot. Superheated means it's very, very hot, and it is made of hydrogen and helium. طيب. What is a planet? It is an object that orbits the sun, and it is large enough to have become مش واضحة عند الصورة have become rounded by its own gravity and has cleared the area of its orbit of any debris. So the planet in general, planets are round in shape and they orbit the sun. How many planets in the solar system? We have 8 planets. There are 8 planets in the solar system. Who can list them for me without cheating? Yalla. Who can list for me the 8 planets in the solar system?
Earth.
انا شوي والله معلش ليث خلي زيد عشان هو بلش.
اوكي تمام.
يلا زيد. I'm sorry ليث.
Mars. Venus.
Excellent.
Saturn.
Okay.
What also? Mercury.
Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. ايوه كمل هذول inner planets.
Uranus.
Uranus, yes.
Sun.
ايش هو؟
That's all I think, right?
ايوه. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune.
Neptune.
Thank you. ليبتون ولا نبتون؟ طيب. يلا thank you زيد. Thank you. So planets of the solar system are divided into 2 types, or scientists classify into 2 categories. The planets that are closer to the sun are called inner planets. These planets are solid in general and they are smaller in size. These planets, the inner planets, include I want to list them according to how they are close to the sun. The closest planet to the sun is Mercury, then Venus, then our planet Earth, Mars. These are the inner planets: Venus, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. Outer planets are made up of gases. They are called giant gases. They are farther from the sun, and also they are much larger than the inner planets. These planets are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Okay, what is a meteor? The solar system, the source not only made up of sun, planets, and moons. There are other bodies in the solar system like meteor. A meteor is a streak of light produced when a small piece of rock or ice known as meteoroid burns up as it enters Earth's atmosphere. Right. we can see a meteor on almost any clear night. اسمه بالعربي شهاب. بتقدر تشوفه على فكرة إذا بتدقق على بالليل، ممكن بأي يوم بتشوف يعني تقريبا every day you can see a meteor. Okay, a comet is a cold mixture of dust and ice that develops a long trail of light as it approaches the sun. Okay. في طبعا عندنا comet, one of the most famous comets, Halley comets, Halley's comet. طيب طبعا هذول rarely seen. مثلا هالي مثلا some of comets like Halley's comet كأنه كل 75 years. It appears every 75 years. Okay. Okay, look, for example, in 1910 Halley's comet traveled close to the earth. Okay, يعني مش مشكلة إنه الكوميتس بيقعدوا فترة طويلة حتى يظهروا بالسماء. ماشي نطول. Constellations. What are constellations? They are constellation are a pattern or a group of stars that people imagine represents a figure, animal, or object. Okay, these are called constellations. Their names often the ancient Roman and the Greek cultures. Okay, their names are taken from the Greek or the mythologies and so on. Like, for example, these are examples, some examples of constellations. طيب. Look here. Now, هذول ما بدي أطول عليهم كثير، بس نعرف بدي منكم. It's very important to know what is the meaning of geocentric model. In the past, people thought that Earth is the center of the universe. Okay, this is called Earth model or geocentric model because G means in the Greek, G means Earth. So Earth-centered model is known as geocentric model. Okay, يعني many early observers in the past, thousands of years ago, including the Greek philosopher Aristotle, thought that Earth was the center of the universe, which is طبعا do you think that is true? No, it is. Scientists discovered later that sun is the center of the universe. So the geocentric model means that Earth is the center or Earth-centered model. Now, the heliocentric model means helios in the Greek means sun. So the heliocentric model means it is a sun-centered model. That the sun is the center of the universe. طيب. Now, that's enough for this lesson. خلينا نروح على lesson 2. Let me share the screen. Is it loading?
It opened, yes.
وين راح هو؟ خلينا نشوف شوي.
شو المشكلة؟
ويت استنى. عندي الجهاز بده فورمات من زمان، انا لازم اللابتوب تبعي بده تظبيط. There is a problem.
So Yusuf, can you please send the exam material?
And I sent it, by the way.
Okay, I can't find it in my phone. That's why I said
Okay, no problem. I will send it again. ليث شوف هاي exam material is unit 8 and 9. Just خلاص. Topic 8 and topic 9. That's it. Okay. Is the screen shared?
Yes, it's
Okay.
yes.
Now,
It's
what is
screenshot.
again, as I told you, please always take care of the concepts. Axis. What is the axis? It is the an imaginary line. Scientists developed an imaginary line that passes from the North Pole through the Earth center to the South Pole. Okay, this is called axis. Now, the spinning of Earth on its axis is called rotation. So rotation means when Earth spin, or the movement of Earth on its axis is called rotation. So Earth has two types of movement, rotation and revolution. When Earth goes around the sun, or when Earth orbits the sun, it is called revolution. And when Earth spin on its axis, it's called rotation. But how long does it take for Earth to complete one rotation? Who can tell me? How long? مش معقول ما بتعرفوش. How long?
Around the sun or around itself?
Around its
24
axis.
hours.
Yes.
Oh, yes, 24
The
hours.
spinning of Earth
On
on
the
its
sun in
axis.
1 year.
Yes. The spinning of Earth, thank you, Zay, thank you, Layth, thank you, Nisreen. The spinning of Earth on its axis takes 24 hours, which we call it a day. And the revolution of Earth, or the orbit of Earth around the sun, takes, or the revolution takes 365 days, which we call it a year. Right. This is the Earth axis. As you see, it goes from the North Pole through the center to the South Pole. Okay, and Earth rotates on the axis from west to east. Right. Revolution, it is the movement of one object around another. Yani revolution is not only for Earth. Other planets in the solar system also revolve around the sun. There is a revolution for Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. All of the planets also revolves around the sun. Okay, and the path, like other planets, Earth's path or orbit around the sun is an ellipse. يعني ايش يعني ellipse? It is not completely circular or oval shape. All the planets, including Earth, have an ellipse or have elliptical orbit around Earth. Elliptical means it is like the oval shape, like the oval shape. It's not complete circle. Right. Seasons. Why do we have seasons? Because of Earth revolution around the sun, for two reasons. The first reason, because Earth revolves around the sun, and because the Earth axis is tilted. Yani it's not straight. Look at the Earth axis. It is not straight like this. It is tilted. So because of Earth's revolution around the sun, and because of the axis of the Earth is tilted, we have different seasons with, as you know, there are different temperatures. Yani sometimes in winter it is cold, in summer it is hot, and so on. Right. So I want you to know why we have seasons. Okay, seasonal differences in temperature are dependent on the tilt of Earth axis. This is important. Okay. Okay. If the axis, notice that. Did you know that if the axis of the Earth were straight, and the temperatures will not change, and we will have one season? Okay, there would be no seasons if the Earth axis is straight. But because, however, Earth's axis is tilted to an angle of 23.5 degrees. This is, the Earth axis is tilted to this degree, 23.5 degrees. So we have different seasons. So as a result, or therefore, as Earth revolves around the sun, the north end of its axis is tilted away from the sun for part of the year and toward the sun for part of the year. Right. Let's go to the next page. This is the seasons, as you see, when, for example, this part of the earth is faces the sun. Here we have, for example, summer. It is December, so in the South Pole, in the southern hemisphere, we have summer in December because it faces the sun. On the other hand, in June, the north hemisphere or the northern hemisphere faces the sun, so we have summer here. At this time, look at the other side here. In June, in the southern hemisphere, it is winter. Here in December, in the northern hemisphere, we have winter. And here, neither the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere in March and September, neither one of them is tilted or faces the sun. So here we have moderate temperatures. Fine. We have, these are, please ركزوا عليهم, solstices and equinoxes. Okay? What is a solstice? In each hemisphere there is one day per year when the sun appears highest in the sky. Each of these days is called solstice. Okay? Solstices occur when either the northern or the southern hemisphere is at the strongest tilt toward the sun. طيب. What about equinox? Halfway between the solstices, neither hemispheres is tilted. Neither hemispheres, the southern or the northern, neither one of them is tilted toward the sun. Each of these days is called equinox, which means equal night. This day occurs when the sun passes directly overhead the equator at noon and night and day both 12 hours long. Yani in the equinoxes, the night and day are equal. طيب. When solstices and equinoxes happens in the northern and the southern hemisphere. Look, the solstices and equinoxes occur at opposite times in the northern and the southern hemisphere. This is very important thing to know, that they happen at opposite times. For example, in the northern hemisphere, we live, remember that Jordan lies in the northern hemisphere. The summer solstice occurs where? When? June 21. Did you know that in this day, we have the longest day in the year and the shortest night? It is the summer solstice. طيب مين بيقول لي in June 21 what is it in the southern hemisphere? طلع in the northern hemisphere it is winter solstice. Exactly. So in June 21 it is summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. طيب. So we have two solstices, the summer solstice and winter solstice, which happens in December 22. Here in December 22, we have in the northern hemisphere, I am talking, listen, in December 22, we have winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. In this day, we have the shortest day and the longest night. In the northern hemisphere, again, we have summer solstice in June 21 and winter solstice in December 22. Notice that in December 22, it is summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. Yani they are opposite. Okay? طيب. What about equinoxes? They happen in September 22 and March in 21 for both spheres. I mean, in September 22, there is equinox in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. In these days, night and day are equal. But what is the difference? Can anyone tell me what is the difference? In September 22, it is equinox in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. But what is the difference? Okay, in September 22, what is it in northern hemisphere? It is spring or autumn? In September 22, it is spring, it's fall or autumn in the northern hemisphere, and it is spring in the southern hemisphere. In March 21, it is equinox, another equinox, day and night are equal, but it is spring in the northern hemisphere and autumn in the southern hemisphere. As you see that the solstices and equinoxes are opposite. Okay, look, northern hemisphere, I abbreviate it as N. We have June 21 شو عندنا summer ايش solstice. At the same time, it is in the southern hemisphere, it is winter solstice. شباب ترى على فكرة ما بتخربط. So in June 21, it is summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. In December 22, we have what? Winter solstice in where? In the northern hemisphere. At the same time, it is summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. Equinoxes occur in 2 days. March 21 and September.
So, Yusuf, are all of these details important for the exam?
The dates, yes, September 22 ولا 21 ربطت 2022. September 22, sorry. Okay, here it is autumn in the northern hemisphere and spring in the southern. Here it is spring in the northern and autumn in the southern. Okay. خلينا نروح نكمل. Okay, what is gravity? It is, please memorize what the Newton's law of universal gravitation. Before this, gravity is a force that attracts all objects toward each other. Yani, there's a force of attraction between me and my laptop, between me and my, for example, shoes. But you can't notice these forces because they are small. But if the object is large, like Earth and Sun, you can feel its gravity. So gravity is a force that attracts all objects toward each other. Okay, this law, the Newton's law of universal gravitation, is very important. It states that every object in the universe attracts every other object. Now, the force of gravity depends on two things: the mass and the distance. Where is the second factor? Okay, distance. These two things affect the force of gravity. When the objects, mass, as you know, is the amount of matter in an object. The more if the object is more massive, it has more gravity. So because Earth is so massive, it exerts a much greater force on you than your textbook exerts on you. Notice that your textbook exerts a force of gravity on you, but because your textbook is very small, you can't feel this force of gravity. So mass is important in the force of gravity. The greater the object mass, the more gravity it has. The distance between two objects is very important. When the distance increases, what happens to the gravity? It decreases. So gravity is also affected by the distance between two objects. The force of gravity decreases as distance increases. So the closer the object means the greater the gravity. The farther the objects, the smaller the gravity. Inertia, it's also important. What is the meaning of inertia? The tendency of an object to resist a change in motion. By the way, Newton's first law of motion is called the law of inertia. Okay, the greater the object mass, the greater its inertia. For example, it's harder for you to push, for example, a car, but you can easily push a table or your disk. You can easily push your disk because it has less mass, so it has less inertia. But it is much harder or impossible for you to push a car because it has a greater mass, so it has greater inertia. طيب, I want to ask you a question. Which has a greater inertia? Earth or sun? Or Earth or the sun? Which has greater inertia?
The sun, of course.
Yes, because it has a greater mass. Okay, so you feel that effects of inertia when you are riding in a car and stop suddenly, but you keep moving forward. The more mass, look, the more mass an object has, the greater its inertia. An object with greater inertia is more difficult to start or stop. ماشي? For example, elephant and cat, which has a greater inertia? Of course, elephant has greater inertia because it has a greater mass. Isaac Newton stated his ideas about inertia as scientific law. It's called Newton's first law of motion. As you know, there are 3 laws of motion. First law, second law, third law. Newton's first law of motion is called the law of inertia. شو هون ضل عنا؟ اوكي، خلص هون ما في شيء. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow إن شاء الله شباب راح نكمل الريفيجن، راح نكمل lesson 3 و lesson 4 إن شاء الله. إذا ظل enough time بنكمل topic 8. طيب, do you have any comments or any questions?
No, thank you, teacher.
No, thank you. أصلا مستر يوسف إحنا أخذنا topic 8 climate صح؟
خلاص يعني
الامتحان
قصدك
الثاني.
مش مشكلة، خلينا نعمل ريفيجن بكرة للسون 3 ولسون 4. ايش ليث قصدك انت اخذنا؟ يعني قصدك انه لسه متذكره، قصدك هيك يعني؟ انا شباب مش تخربطوا. توبيك 7 not included احنا اخذناه صح؟ توبيك 7 خلص ما مش موجود امتحان. الفاينل اكزام راح ابعث لكم اياه كمان مره عشان نخربط. توبيك 8 and topic 9 بس 2 units. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.